Hello everybody and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're going to be going over my round 10 tips. Sorry if this video is out a bit late on the Thursday. I think from now on, after this video, I'm going to start trying to get these videos out on the Tuesday a bit earlier. I think the last two tipping videos have come out like my time, very like evening on the Thursday, so I'll probably swap the schedule with the fantasy review. I'll do that on a Thursday instead, and the tipping video on a Tuesday. But anyway, let's just quickly go through my round 9 tips. I was in a bit of very good tipping form before that round. I got 6 out of 9, which was apparently not a very good score. I started off with a massive upset. My margin was way off for that one. I did not think Richmond are going to win that one. Then Gold Coast win over West Coast, pretty standard. I backed in Sydney to get it done against Fremantle. Even with all our outs, I just thought surely we beat Fremantle, and I was wrong. We kicked the first 3 goals. I was keeping tabs on the game. I'm thinking, all right, we're going okay here, and then it all just fell apart. Nothing went right. Port Adelaide, Melbourne, yeah, pretty standard tips. Brisbane as well, they were all pretty big margins there. Carlton, well, they're just crap. I mean, I don't get how they've managed to. They've got so much talent on their list, and they just aren't really. They just don't perform. I don't understand why, and they've got a few very tough games coming up, so look, they're gonna have to get their act together. I don't know why they're underperforming so much. Adelaide and Collingwood on the Sunday were 2 pretty simple tips, and there were 2 pretty big margins as well. So yeah, 6 out of 9. Could have been better. There were a couple of upsets, but oh well. But without further ado, let's just get into my round 10 tips. Alrighty, starting things off, Friday night matchup, Port Adelaide versus Melbourne. Port Adelaide won't have Charlie Dixon or Todd Marshall for this game, and they're 2 very big outs for them, considering the very good backline that Melbourne possess. So it is at Adelaide Oval. Port are in very good form. Both teams are in very good form. I'll back Melbourne to get it done here by 21 points. I just think I might consider tipping Port Adelaide if it weren't for those injury problems. But another issue for Port Adelaide in this game is going to be their ruck coming up against Brodie Grundy and Max Gawn. They're going to have to play either Brian Teakle or Scott Lysett, so I don't think either of those 2 are going to be able to match up well on Max Gawn and Grundy. So yeah, for that reason, I'm going to be tipping Melbourne by 21. Now we move on to what is going to be, I think it's fair to say, a pretty meaningless, terrible matchup. Sydney in some very, very bad form right now. Quite a bit of it is contributed to by injuries, but even still, some of the losses have been pretty poor, like all things considered. In North Melbourne, well, they've lost 7 in a row now. They couldn't be going much worse. I surely we beat North Melbourne, but I'm not 100% confident. We have no key defenders still. Tom McCartan, I don't believe will be back for this match. Not entirely sure when he will be back. So that's going to leave us with Aaron Francis as our only key defender, which Nick Larkey is going to feast on. Last time he played us, North Melbourne lost by 38. We had all of our main key defenders in the team, and he still kicked 7 goals. So what's he going to do on a non-existent back line? this time round. It's just, yeah, I'm gonna back us to win. I'll tip us to win by 19 points. Please get the job done. If we lose to North Melbourne, that's just embarrassing, regardless of how many injuries we have. Bulldogs taking on Adelaide now. This will be a very interesting matchup, I believe, because last time these two sides played at Ballarat Oval at Mars Stadium, not Ballarat Oval. It's in Ballarat. It's not called Ballarat Oval. Yeah, Adelaide actually won, and they probably should have won by a lot more. I can't remember that. It was a very inaccurate game for one of these teams. I believe it was Adelaide who was quite inaccurate. Yeah, it was a 1-point game. Both teams are better than this time last year, so it should be another very interesting contest. Bulldogs, they're in some pretty good form. So are Adelaide. They just smashed St Kilda, and two pretty damn competitive performances against Geelong and Collingwood. I'm gonna tip for this game. I really don't know who to tip. I'm gonna... You know what, Adelaide beat them here last year, so I'm gonna tip them to win again by 7 points. Should be a cracking game. Can't wait to watch this one. Fremantle versus Geelong. Fremantle won their last couple. I don't think they're anywhere near on Geelong's level, though. I mean, they did just lose to Richmond last week, but I think that'll be a one-off game. Then again, they did start 0-3, but yeah, before that game, they were in some very good form, and I expect them to regather that form. And I think they should win comfortably against Fremantle. Because, I mean, a lot has been talked about Fremantle's forward line in the last couple of weeks, looking like it's starting to function, and I mean, it definitely is starting to function more than it was at the start of the year. But they came up against Hawthorn and Sydney without any of their like best 22 key defenders. So I don't rate Fremantle that highly yet, and I think they'll probably get found out against Geelong. So this is probably one of the more interesting Q clashes in history, really. The Gold Coast Suns, they look like they could well, I heard someone say, I heard Eddie Maguire say that this could potentially lead to Gold Coast finishing in the top 8 at the end of the round, which, looking at that, I actually don't see how that's possible, because if Adelaide or the Western Bulldogs win, then either one of them goes to hang on, I think I did my maths wrong. No, if Adelaide lose this and Gold Coast win this, then potentially Gold Coast could move into the 8. Never mind. Alright. So he was right. Anyway, that doesn't... I think... Well, I'm just gonna leave my tip as that. I think Brisbane are still quite a bit better than Gold Coast. They have looked very impressive in the last few weeks, but they haven't beaten much yet. They've beaten Richmond before they maybe found a bit of form. We'll have to wait and see how Richmond go in the next few weeks. But yeah, Richmond were looking very poor at that time. They beat them, beat North, and they beat West Coast. They did narrowly lose to Melbourne. Was a pretty impressive performance. And if they beat Brisbane here, then I think the Suns are back and they potentially could make finals. But to go on the safe side, I think Brisbane should win this one comfortably by 34. Essendon taking on Richmond now. Dream time at the G. Richmond have won their last 13 games against Essendon, which, if they manage to beat Essendon in this game, then it'll be the 14th time, and they'll have the outright longest winning streak against any club. So yeah, there's a lot to play for both teams. I'm sure Essendon wouldn't want to be on the wrong end of that record, and I'm sure Richmond would absolutely love to be on the right end of that record. And I'm going to tip for... God, I don't know. I usually do my tips before this video, but today I'm kind of just thinking up of them on the fly. I'm going to go with Richmond to win by 8 points. Yeah, I was going to say I can't see how Essendon win this one. That's not true at all. I definitely think they can win this one. They've lost their last 4. Yeah, okay, I'm going to stick with my tip with Richmond. I think Richmond, they looked very impressive last week against Geelong, and I think that they just seem to have the wood over Essendon for some reason. So I'm going to tip them to win this one by 8 points in a thrilling matchup. We go from that should be an absolutely cracking game to the Spoon Bowl, the Harley Reid Cup, whatever you want to call it. Oh god, this is... I mean, it could be an interesting matchup simply for the fact that both teams are just so awful. But, look, I'm just going to say this. If Hawthorn lose this one, they are tanking. There's no way. If they lose to what is essentially the waffle West Coast Eagles, then they've got to be tanking. I can't... Alright, so yeah, I'm going to go Hawthorn by 18 points. They have a better team right now as it stands than West Coast, because, I mean, how many players are on West Coast injury list? Too many to count. And that's not 18 points, I just realised that's 8 points. Yeah, 18 points. Surely Hawthorn win this one, and like I said, if they do lose this one, they've got to be tanking. There's no way. Alright, we go from Harley Reid Cup to what should be potentially one of the games of the season. Carlton's season is on the line with this game. They cannot afford to lose this, and they cannot afford to lose too many after this. And Collingwood, well, they are absolutely flying. Can Carlton get up against their old nemesis? I don't think so. I think this should be a fairly comfortable Collingwood win. I hope it's a cracking game, but I think Collingwood should get the job done here by 20 points, if not more. Final game of the round here. I accidentally already set the scores for this one. That's not what I'm going to tip for this game. I think St Kilda, they lost last week, but I think they should bounce back well against GWS. I think they're still a fairly good team. They're going to get Max King back this week. He's ready to play, or actually, I'm not entirely sure. He might play through the VFL one match, but if he is back, then that's big for them, because they've really been missing a big key forward, especially with Membry going out this week. Yeah, I think St Kilda should get this one done. And that is my tips for round 10. So West Coast outright bottom on the ladder now. If Hawthorn lose that, then I believe they will be outright bottom. We got the bottom 4 overall looking still the same. Fremantle dropping down a bit. Sydney move up just a tad bit with a percentage of just over 100%, which seems weird seeing how bad they've played in the last few weeks and being on 4 and 6 as I've tipped it. Carlton continue to slip down the ladder. Richmond in 9th spot. The Western Bulldogs still... Actually, there's... According to my tips, they're actually a game and a half ahead of Richmond, so still comfortably in the 8. Same with Adelaide and Geelong on 6 and 4. Port Adelaide just outside the top 4, and I've got St Kilda making it back into the top 4, and then the top 3 here, all the same. So yeah, if you did enjoy that video, please leave a like and subscribe. Comment down your tips below, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.